Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Cut and Splice. This is Gil, and I'm here with Matt and Jason. And this this time, we're gonna go back to our what you like patron saint, I guess, of the show. At this point, it feels like uh, Christopher Nolan, one of his movies. This time, we're doing Interstellar to continue the series. I guess maybe it'll be like a goal now that we can't stop recording this until we do all his movies or something. Um, but
We're almost halfway, right?
yeah, and it's funny. It's not as if it's funny because if there was any filmmaker in in the world that I would of all time, it would be Kubrick, where I would plant his movies all throughout this podcast to make sure we get through all of them. And we've already like half done some, or like indirectly spoke about a lot of them. But yeah, there's something about Nolan that I feel like if we were doing this podcast in the 60s and 70s, Kubrick would be the guy that would show up like more often than anybody else. And I think Nolan does deserve this. I would say like modern day filmmaker trophy that he is a very very unique talent. He's like as commercial as Spielberg ever was, and as maybe sophisticated as or at least can be at times, as at least get close to what Kubrick was doing with some of his movies. And definitely this one took a lot from, I feel like, 2001. Obviously, that whole aspect of exploration and potential of humanity, but coming at it from a very different approach. So yeah, and I think that's why it's worth. And he is polarizing to some degree because there's always his movies are so complex, maybe too much for their own good. Tenant, that I feel like the way this podcast started, that I feel like some of these movies are worth that second look and maybe a discussion to see what exactly was going on there. Does it all really make sense? Because I'm sure he figured it all out, but it sometimes doesn't feel 100%. But it wins you over, like the Dark Knight and like so many of his other movies. So that's why I thought it would be worthwhile, discussing it. But for you guys, I guess quick question is like how often, like how many times have you seen this movie since theaters? Because technically this is my only my second viewing.
It's only your second viewing since theaters, or is it only your second
Yeah,
viewing ever?
no, I only saw it once in theater. I don't watch movies more than once in the theaters,
Oh, okay.
at least since I was a kid. But yeah, this is the second time I've seen it. And I tried to we watched the first half of it on the TV, but the last half climactic thing we watched on the projector, as
Yeah.
Chris Nolan intended, but on the biggest screen possible. And you guys saw it on IMAX or something when it came out?
Yeah. I mean, I lived like 10 minutes away from the Air and Space Museum in DC when it came out, so I saw it opening night in the Lockheed Martin IMAX theater, and then I saw it a couple more times in IMAX when it was still available. And I don't know how many times I've seen it since, but it's been a couple. Um, but yeah, it's definitely one of one of Nolan's films that I tend to gravitate toward when I feel like a dose of Nolan. I mean, I'm a sci-fi geek to begin with, and I mean, this is Nolan really being like very straight up sci-fi. So like pure hard sci-fi, which I thoroughly appreciate.
Surprisingly, this was actually my second time seeing it as well. When I saw it in theaters, I went to the ArcLight, and I very specifically remember choosing the ArcLight that was advertising that they had it. I want to say either in 70 or just that it was in film, because they had this big poster where they were like, you could go see it digitally, or you could see it, on film, or you could see it in 70, or you could go to IMAX. There's like for some reason, Nolan really wanted to push the fact that you could go see this thing, the best possible way that your city would allow, kind of thing. But yeah, I I did not pay for IMAX. I think it was just probably I don't know why. I just probably because I just wasn't going to or something. But I did go specifically choose to see it at the ArcLight on film, and I loved the movie, and um, I think we've talked about this in the other times that we've done Nolan movies, but this might be this movie might I can't remember exactly what I said in the past, but it might have eked its way into like my top 3 or 4 favorite Nolan movies, and yet all these years I was only going off of my initial viewing of it because this was the second time I'd ever seen it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yes, I'm assuming we would all kind of praise this movie. I guess it'll be like to see to what degree. I mean, as a jumping off point, just to keep it quick, because there's such a complex movie, we should get to the spoilers as quickly as possible.
Probably.
But the I would definitely recommend this movie. Yes, maybe it's a bit long and it's a bit heavy on the sci-fi, and maybe that's not for everybody. But there's no denying that he just finds like a way to make things commercial, because if he connects it to the father-daughter relationship, and he always finds some way, like an in that some audience member can latch onto. That's why he's such a good filmmaker, because unlike Denis, that I feel like in some ways can be a bit colder, Nolan is still very methodical, still very clinical, but he's always got like this very strong human relationship connection thing going on there. So yeah, I mean, it's I definitely recommend. And at the time I said I rated it 9. And for the longest time, I thought, was it an emotional 9? Was it because I felt like he was finally doing hard sci-fi that I was happy about that, and that alone bumped it up a notch? And as I was watching the movie, and we watched it in like several sittings due to scheduling, I realized it's definitely not a good movie to watch in multiple sittings, because it makes because all the connecting dots like get spread out a bit, and you also see more of the flaws. And I was going for like edging it to an 8, but then that motherfucker, like by the end of the movie, like that shit just come together, and I was like, fuck, it's a 9. Just like I was like at an 8 most of the movie. Like, what is that? And why is this? And why is that? But how could that be? And how could? Oh yeah, fuck you. That type of thing. So, in any case, but we'll get into the details, and then we'll see like what you guys think, and if we're like on the same page there, or if like I have it right. But yeah, because all the questions I had the first time I watched it, I didn't feel like they were all answered. A la, like Dark Knight type of like flaws, where like the some of the plot lines and stuff. But it really like once I thought about it, like no, he kind of figured it all out. There's no not a lot of bullshitting in this movie. It kind of works, even though it's got some specific problem, like paradoxical problem. But time travel or communicating with the past and all that. But yeah, no, it's a good movie. Like it deserves to be a 9. If 2001 is a 10, then this is definitely as close as you can get to 2001 in a modern movie. I feel like there's no big sci-fi movie that did it better than this. Up until since 2001.
I think I'm pretty much right there with you. There, upon repeat viewings, there definitely are like a couple of moments that don't entirely work, but and not even like plot. I'll get into it later, but I mean, especially as you alluded to in terms of time travel. I mean, actually dealing with time travel that we know exists in such an interesting way and making so much of the movie about that. Uh, not dealing with time travel the way that we're used to in science fiction, but actually, time dilation is a real thing. Relativity is a real thing. So yeah, I mean, it really stood out to me from the get go as taking advantage of something pretty damn interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a spoiler to say time travel because I don't feel like it reveals everything about what's going on in the movie, but it's a component of it at least. And
Right.
it doesn't tell you who's like traveling to where and how and yeah. Yeah. Anywho, Jason?
Yeah. I too would I don't know what I've said in the past about the movie, but just off the top of my head right now, I too would probably put it at a 9, certainly no lower than like a high 8, I have said since I saw this movie that controversial take, but I do think that this is a better movie than Inception.
Yeah, that was like my biggest thing about it when it came out. Is like finally that's the movie he should have made instead of Inception. But
I mean,
it's all
I
good.
Still love Inception. I'm just saying this is a better
forgiven.
movie.
Yeah,
it's just a better movie, plain and simple. Without going too deep into the woods, the weeds, I mean, about it. I think you kind of said it already. Like there are elements of this movie that you feel like perhaps are biting off more than it not necessarily more than it can chew, but more than it should even attempt to chew. And yet by the very end, it has wrapped it so well up that you're like, yeah, we kind of got to everything. And it all played a very important part in telling the actual story and diving into the aspects that he's trying to talk about and everything. It's just it's a pretty fantastic movie. I don't know. That's those are my thoughts.
And Matt, did you give a rating for it? I forgot.
Yeah, I said that I was in line with you, a 9.
Oh, so a 9. So we're like 3 9s at the least 8.5 to high 8. Yeah. Well, the IMDb is like 8.7, so that's appropriate.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. And the critics 74, not terrible, but I wonder some of the issues they have. But if there's nothing else, we could get into spoilers. Definitely a lot to cover. And any first thoughts that you guys have, or anything that you want to delve with?
This movie has pun intended. This movie has a pretty stellar cast.
Yeah.
You like that one, Matt?
The more you think about it, the funnier it is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This movie has an interstellar cast.
Yeah. This is one of those things I think you just get when you're, a post Dark Knight Christopher Nolan, and you can like every character that has like this what is it, the principal is in one single scene of the whole movie, and he's got like David Aiello or something like that. Is that how you say that guy's last name? Yeah. He's got really great people to do. When this, as we discussed already, this movie does jump around it with time because it's necessary to do so for the story. But I mean, there's as a result, there's certain characters that are back on Earth that have to age quite a bit, and so each actor doesn't really get a whole hell of a lot of time with each character, really, if they're in that position. And it's like the fact that, I don't know, like you've got like I think Topher Grace is really good in this very small role where they don't give him a whole lot to do. He's kind of there for, to just sort of support Jessica Chastain. And like, he's really good. And it's like, it's kind of how I feel about everybody. It's like every little part. There's just like, oh boy, look at, we got, we got Timothy Chalamet over here doing his thing. And no surprise, he's pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's a lot. He caught a lot of some young people, and but it feels like Topher Grace didn't explain his character that much. I guess he was like her partner or something.
Well, I mean, she kisses him at the end, so
yeah. So he's like a partner. But yeah, it's probably like stuff that they cut out, like maybe some.
Well, I think there was probably a whole bunch of this movie where they were like, had to cut for time. It feels very dense in a good way. Yeah.
One thing I'll as a jumping off point is that and I forgot Casey Affleck played the old Chalamet.
He's very good in it too.
And also Roger Deakins said that the scene with the flying thing, the droid thing, whatchamacallit.
The drone?
The drone, sorry. That's one of his favorite scenes in recent like film like history, or like in the last few years or something. He said like when they're like running, like driving through the cornfield and stuff, and like he said it was like a very well shot scene. He gave compliments to Hoytman.
Yeah, and I do actually think that this was his first collaboration with Hoyt van Hoytma after Wally Pfister decided to become a director or nothing else, and then he made Transcendence and decided to be nothing else. But I do think that Hoytma was an upgrade over Wally Pfister. I mean, I enjoy Wally Pfister's work, don't get me wrong, but I think that Hoyt van Hoytma is a more interesting cinematographer, and he also just seems to be more innovative. But
yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what do you guys think as far as like trying to break down what was going on here. Do either of you want to like give it a go? Just I'm curious to hear anybody try to explain it, or I can do it. I'm good either way.
Just to be clear, what exactly are we trying to explain?
So no, because the big confusion that so what always bothered me, I think, aside from the fact that he ends up going to this like fourth, fifth dimension, whatever structure that is built by, apparently he realizes eventually not aliens but future humans, which I guess could be same almost as aliens, like an advanced society.
Yeah.
But yeah, and for the longest time, it was like there's a few things that bothered me. Like I thought that he was the one who said stay, don't go, stay, don't go through the bookcase. But then I was like, but why would he give the coordinates for him to find the facility to then be convinced to be the pilot? It doesn't make sense. But then I was like, towards the end, like, oh no, that part is the future humans. They're like trickling the coordinates to get him to go. But I don't know why the whole thing, as we were watching it, was like, why does the coordinates have to be given by that room, and then he finds the facility? Why wouldn't what's his face? Keep forgetting. Michael Caine. Michael Caine's character. Like, why wouldn't he just like, knock on his door one day and say like, listen, we need you. We have this mission. But the thing that I understand that I was like, that's always an issue with time travel is like, how could the future humans ever exist if the mission never happens? Like, how can there be a future if the only way for that future to happen, he needs to be contacted by them in order to go to the facility, in order to be the pilot, in order to do all the steps needed to get to save humanity. But that's what I realized in this viewing, is that the future humans are not the ones that were saved from Earth. They were the what do they call it? The Plan B option. That in
the colony.
The colony, yeah, those are the future humans that end up saving, let's say, New World humans. Like, they're the colony that never existed on Earth. They're the ones who survive and thrive for who knows how many thousands of years, and they reach a level of technology where they can communicate with the past, and they save the past humans, because they say, like, there's this pilot, and we think if we can get that pilot on that mission, then he can not only get us to where we need to get in order to still exist, we can save past humanity, and maybe we can even reconnect with them somehow someday. So that's what they were doing, and so the idea is that before they did that, what apparently happened is maybe that McConaughey wasn't the pilot, but they had a pilot that maybe didn't succeed in the way that he did in cracking the flying close to the black hole to create to get the data necessary in order to, like, eliminate the issue of gravity or whatever the thing in the formula that they couldn't solve. That's what Cooper could do, but maybe a lesser pilot was able to mainly just get them to that planet, the one that was viable, in order to start the colony. But in that reality, past humans died. But the future humans, after thousands of years and developing the right technology, realized, like, we could go back and save them. And this is the part that bothered me, but, like, wouldn't they risk their own existence but they've thought it all out. Like, if we make sure that they still take all the steps in order to still plant the colony and save them, and because we're so far apart, then their living wouldn't affect our existence, coming into existence. So that's yeah. Anyways, that's my understanding of the movie, and that's where it came all together. I was like, if this is what it's going for, it's kind of perfect. Like, it really is, because one of the issues, if you change the past, like with Marty McFly, you can affect the present. But because they're so far apart as two societies, they could, and maybe they gave them instructions to not interfere with their development wherever they are until the right time. I don't know, but
I mean, I think that last part you're talking about is almost just like you're at that point, you're just kind of guessing how the whole aspect of time travel would work, in this particular universe. But I was just going to say, I've never given it that much thought, but everything you said checks out. I mean, the reason why the colony people would exist, if McConaughey had never been had never joined the mission, would be that they get to the point where they're out of time, and Anne Hathaway is obviously going to be one of the astronauts sent on the mission to do the colony, and they're going to go through the wormhole, and they're going to see the three options, and without McConaughey or any other mission people there to outrank her, she's obviously going to choose with her heart. She's going to choose the world that she eventually does end up at anyway, and it seems like that's the best one out of the three. Even though it doesn't look great, it looks a lot better than the other two. So
just to double check, that was the one that she had the hots for or something.
Yeah, that's my whole point. Is she would have chosen that planet.
She would have chosen that if Cooper wasn't on the mission.
Yeah, because that's the one she wanted to go to. She had a previous relationship with that guy, and she was hoping that she'd find him alive. And then, of course, at the very end, we see the grave that she has dug, or not dug, but piled rocks on top of him or whatever.
Oh, for him. Yeah, that's what I was wondering too at the end. Was like, but didn't she go to that guy that she liked? But I guess
she did, but she got there and he was dead.
Yeah.
Which is why it's nice that McConaughey is chasing after her, because she'll have a whole bunch of things worth of whatever you want to call it, a bunch of embryos and plants and animals and such to make a new planet with, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, the main question I would personally have is why? Like, why, if future humans have this way of communicating with the present, I couldn't they just leave messages or something, or give them the formula? Why have this whole elaborate thing? I mean, they probably went through like millions of permutations in order to find this one sequence of events where, like, oh, if we put this pilot on the mission, he's gonna be, crazy enough to like go into the black hole or something. Yeah, it's very strange, but it's what the movie is all about. So, also another question I had, I don't know if you guys had any answer to this, but how long was Matt Damon on that planet? He wasn't there super long, right?
I mean, from his point of view, probably a while, because he ended up having to go into the sleep thing.
Yeah, because the one thing I will say is that I'm not sure if he was there as long as, although it's possible, as the what's the guy's name who was is that like Ramili? The guy on the ship, like, with them.
Yeah, the older man.
Yeah, the black guy.
Yeah.
He, like, the fact that that he stays there alone for,
Yeah,
like,
Romilly.
30 something years. Romilly? Yeah. The fact that he stays there for like 30 some years and doesn't lose his mind. I feel like it feels like he was there longer than Matt Damon was.
Well, he would have been. I was confused about that the first time I saw it, but before seeing it this time, maybe, I don't know when, but let's just say 2 or 3 years ago, I remember having a conversation with someone who said the time dilation is affected the most the closer you are to the black hole. So the surface of the planet where the water thing is affected the most because it's so close to the black hole, which is why they're so concerned about like getting in and getting out, because they know if they're there for 1 hour, like 7 years will pass or something like that. They said something to that effect. So they the surface of that planet is affected the most because it's closest to the black hole, and being in orbit around the planet wasn't affected as much, but it was still affected way more than the other planets. So if he was there for 30 something years, he didn't age 30 something years. He aged a lot, but the Anne Hathaway like touches his face, in a really emotional scene, and she says, "Why didn't you sleep? Instead of waiting out all these years for us to come back." And he says, "I did take a couple naps." So it's like, seems like probably a couple different times for a few years at a time. He probably was like asleep for, who knows how much, 3 to 5, 10 years, something like that, in different stretches. But overall, he did age quite a bit. But yeah, it would stand to reason that however many years that Matt Damon was on his planet, by his perspective, it certainly wasn't that entire like 30 something whatever years that the other guy experienced.
Ramali said, I think specifically that from his perspective, it was 23 years.
There you go, 23 years.
Since they left.
Yeah.
So that would have been slightly over 3 hours for Cooper and Brand on the planet. So, I mean, it stands to reason that Matt Damon would have experienced all that. I think they said that the gravity on Matt Damon's planet was like 90% hours or something. So it would be
something.
Yeah, though, I mean, that's the actual size of the planet. I'm not trying to be Kip Torn right now. But yeah, I guess it stands to reason that, the time that Cooper and Brand were on Miller's planet, for Matt Damon, that would have been at least 23 years for him right there. And
Oh,
then on
Matt
top,
Damon would have, as long as he would have the
yeah,
same effect of time.
right. And then on top of that, all the years before they actually even got into the solar system and all
I
that
think
stuff.
they were saying that in orbit around that planet, it was still being affected more by the black hole than the other two planets were. But I don't know.
Yeah, because
they certainly don't
Matt
get
Damon
specific
doesn't
about
look super aged. Obviously, we don't know what he looked like when he left for the mission, but he doesn't look like he was aged in the same way that the Ramilli, like
I mean, we also don't know how the hibernation works, like, in terms of rules. They didn't really get into that in terms of how you would age in hibernation versus not in hibernation.
Yeah. No,
But
generally, it's just strange to me how Matt Damon kind of loses his mind. But maybe it's also because he was a leader of a mission, at least his specific mission. So maybe he was more ambitious to survive. But the whole survival, like, I don't know why he had to do the whole thing. Like, what was the reasoning behind that he had to lie to them and he had to try and eliminate Cooper? Like, what was the story there exactly that he was going for as far as the conflict between them? It felt a
it. Who are we
bit,
talking about?
like Matt Damon's character. Like, I'm just like, oh, it's so weird to me that he loses his mind so much and then wants to like sabotage them.
I love his character's thing. His character drops a significant amount of exposition and it doesn't feel like exposition, which is why I love the writing of his scenes so well. But I think he's, his character is there to explain things to the audience that, like, or to not to explain to, well, that too, but to illustrate certain points, he's talking about the differences between humans and machines. He's talking about the differences between people like him and McConaughey's character and normal people. He's talking about how they're driven to do certain things, and at some point he talks about, like, you're driven by wanting to get home to your kid, because he's overheard him saying that already, that he's going to help them get things set up, and then he's taking the ship and going home. He's got to see his kid. So he's like, you have this incredible survival instinct that makes you, powerful, makes you makes you successful. It makes you achieve things. And your drive is to get back home and to save your family and so on and so forth. But he talks about how there's almost nothing in the world that is more powerful than self-preservation. So it's saying that, like, this guy, everyone from Michael Caine to Anne Hathaway, everyone talks about him before he's on screen as, like, the greatest leader, the greatest adventurer, the greatest, of all astronauts. He's the best human that's ever been, kind of thing. And yet when we find him, every single thing he's doing is selfish, because he got to a certain point where he realized that he, was going to be alone for the rest of his life, and he just decided to ruin everything in hopes to get to a spaceship and get home.
Yeah, and there's no way for all of them to go back. Like, he had to. Like,
I don't think he. I don't believe that he thought anyone would. I think he just, at that point, he would, I don't know. My take on it was that he just decided he needed to get back up there at all costs and screw everybody else, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, everybody else except for Matt Damon was under the impression that Matt Damon's lie was actually the truth. Like, they all still thought that his planet was viable.
Right.
So they thought that they were going to just set up their Plan B colony there. And that's why Cooper was going to leave with the Endurance. That's the name of the ship, right?
Yes.
And go back to see his family after they're set up to do the Plan B there. My impression was that Man was going to go on to Edmund's planet and maroon them because maroon everybody else because they're he lied to them in order to get them to even go to his planet to begin with, and my understanding was that he wasn't just like fucking humanity too, at least in his own mind. He was trying to press onto Edmund's planet and complete the mission, but he was doing it by himself.
Yeah.
Right. So
that makes a certain amount of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
All of the other stuff, the what do you call it? The space colony stuff was on the ship. So that does make a certain amount of sense. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he was trying to like get the ship and steal their thunder type of thing. Like
not steal their thunder. He just wanted to survive.
Yeah, but they would have taken him. I mean, if he had explained, "Listen, I was just desperate. I really wanted to be saved. Like I didn't want to die." Like would they have left him there? They're not that type of people. They would be upset with him. They would say that's not cool, and gonna have to earn our trust again. But I don't think they would have abandoned him there.
Well, you know them better than he does.
Yeah. He exactly. And that's the part about. That's why I brought it up. Is that he's lost his mind a bit, and he's paranoid, and he's like scheming. He's
Right.
like, it's a bit like what's his face, Smeagol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In any case,
I think it's a combination of a lot of things that led to those actions, but yeah.
That was like a big thing. And any other things that say like bothered you last time, or maybe you had like a different perspective on it this time? I have a few more, but I was just like thinking.
I was gonna say one. I don't think this ruins the movie in any way, shape, or form. It just bugged me a little bit because maybe other people understand it and I don't. Maybe it was like a line of dialogue I missed. This bugged me more the first time I saw it. This time it didn't bug me so much, but I definitely don't think that there's a very clear answer for it.
Mm-hmm.
But so at the end, he goes into the black hole and he is able to get, with the help of TARS, he's able to get data directly from the singularity, right? That's what they call it, the thing inside the black hole.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the data that was just the missing puzzle piece for them to figure out how to get, to manipulate gravity and get the station off the Earth, and everything. So that's all well and good. That's awesome. That's cool. Once he's able to communicate that to them, he then gets spat out of the black hole, presumably by the fifth dimensional beings, and he gets spat out into space around Saturn, where they have now built this massive O'Neill cylinder space station where most of the population is now living. And that's really cool. That's awesome. I love that this movie shows that. I've watched a lot of different science fiction things that talk about speculate on that design of space station being a really good idea. This was like the first movie I ever saw actually depicting it, other than animated movies. And anyway, the crazy thing that I never got though is they pick him up and they're there talking to him and like they're kind of like, hey, so we've built this space station. It's he thinks it's like named after him or something, but I think it's named after what they say, like his
daughter.
Thank you. Yeah, his daughter. And There's just some interesting lines of dialogue that basically imply that a bunch of time has passed, enough time for them to have built this massive space station. Even with the new technology that they had, they still had to build this whole thing, and they have a functioning massive space colony, not a space station. It's a space colony floating near Saturn. I assume that they built it there to study the singularity or the portal, and everything. And that's all fine. All of that's good. No issues with any of that. It's just that they seem to still have this open gateway to this other galaxy where there's these 3 planets where this very significant thing happened that allowed them to even get to that point at all. And when he is revived and brought up to speed, they're walking him through the space station, and there's this very cool moment where he's like, ooh, look, one-man spacecraft that are capable of traveling the galaxy or traveling long distances at least, that's cool because and that makes sense. He's a pioneering space type guy. He's a pilot. That would interest him. And of course it's going to lead to him eventually taking off to go reconnect with Brand, with Anne Hathaway's character, which is a great ending. I just wonder, why is it that up to this point, clearly this thing has been there for a really long time, and the events that led them to being at this point were obviously all involving those 3 planets within the others, or on the other side of that portal. Why has nobody already gone? That's what I don't understand, is like, how long has this thing been there? And it's so weird to me that, they say that they picked him up and he's been unconscious for a few days and his daughter is on the way. And they say she's very old now, so it's a big deal that she's making the trip out here. It's really not safe for her to be traveling out here. But that seems to imply that there is fairly regular travel, to get the, whatever. So it's like, it's just very weird to me that they have this giant space station with spaceships that can travel through space, and they have this portal right next to it that leads to these other planets, and nobody has gone. That's what's strange to me, that I've never quite figured out.
Couldn't that be the explanation, that they instructed them not to because it would disrupt their existence from ever happening, the colony?
How would it do that?
Because if they went there and they saved Brand and they said like, hey, you don't need to be stuck on this planet anymore, we're good now, we solved gravity, we have as many space stations as we need, like we can travel to wherever we want, like you don't need to have this colony grow here and under these tough conditions.
I don't think anybody's saying let's go over there, save them, just pick them up and leave. I'm just saying nobody has gone.
Yeah.
You have this open gateway that takes you to this other galaxy where there are 3 planets. I mean, at the very least, you should be going there and looking at stuff. But it's just weird to me that he's the only one that's like, I'm going.
But yeah, I think that's the solution of the future humans, is like, how do we save them without them coming to our planet and disrupting our existence from ever happening the way that it should? Is like, well, we need to solve them this technological thing so they can stay in their own solar system and survive, but maybe give them instructions not to. I don't know. That's one thought that I have to explain how that could work. But also another question I had, wasn't there a whole thing where they're saying, the Michael Caine character, is that that this wormhole was placed there by somebody? That's the one thing that I don't, because if it's not aliens placed it there, how could the future humans place it there if there is never a wormhole for them to travel through to begin with to exist?
Well, it's a very Donnie Darko kind of question, right? I mean, the movie kind of presents a bit of a paradox.
I guess that's the one thing that's unsolvable, because and you could have corrected it by saying like it just popped up there one day. Like you didn't have to say that future humans put it there. It could be aliens. It could be that it's just an anomaly in space, and And it's like, I don't know, sometimes like that could happen when certain phenomenons like can occur all of a sudden. I don't know, but that's just a good question because that paradox, like, it just doesn't work.
Well, that's the whole point of a paradox. But I mean, one thing that did kind of cross my mind is that like the time travel that is built in, actual physics and actual reality that we've measured is pretty well explained, and then the time travel that isn't all that well explained, I just don't really think that they actually took any time to explain it, because you can't really explain it. There's no real. I mean, they explained it insofar as the future humans that have evolved to like being fifth dimensional and creating the Tesseract, so that four-dimensional space in order to allow Cooper to even comprehend the ability of passing through time in this way. Like during that sequence, they do say that a limitation of those future humans is that they can only send gravity back through time. Right? They can't just
they do say that. Yeah.
Right, and that's why they have to communicate in those rudimentary ways by manipulating gravity.
Yeah.
And I mean, a wormhole would also be that, sending gravity back in time to create that anomaly. So,
a wormhole. Oh, so that would be a way because you can send that back in time.
Right.
Yeah, but it's just like, how does it happen to begin with in order for them to exist?
Well, I mean, how is Kyle Reese John Connor's father? It's
yeah.
Well, I think I've got that one figured out, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is but that's like what these movies sometimes do, is they just deal with this idea of paradox. But I feel like if you just don't get into it, you'll be just fine. The movie will still be good. You don't need a paradox for it to be a legit time travel movie. That's why I feel like Back to the Future doesn't really have any paradoxes when you think about it. For the most part, is that they do try to deal with the fact that you kind of need to have things still happen for it to exist and all that. But I'm sure a lot of people even look at Back to the Future and see. Like, I saw some theory about that apparently Marty McFly dies like 7 or 8 times during the course of the 3 movies.
Oh, I think specifically at least 3 or 4 of them certainly in Back to the Future 2, because those would be the ones that Doc has the actual functional time machine.
Time machine. Yeah, because the whole jumping off the building is that they say like you actually died there. But the tunnel, yeah, because Doc found out that he died and then traveled in time to the specific moment where he could save him. Like what's the phrasing, like Deus Ex Machina, like the whole like showing up in the last minute. That like here it's not really that. It's just that he's got a time machine, so every time he dies, he just goes back to that moment and saves him in the nick of time. But in any case, yeah. No, I don't know. I guess that is a good point, Matt, about the whole gravity. I think I missed that. The I guess gravity in some sort of theoretical sense. Maybe you can have that travel to the past, but yeah, it just doesn't solve the whole paradox.
Well, I mean, it's I mean, I think that's kind of another area where I give this movie a lot of points. Where when we deal with time travel in science fiction, it usually, again, we usually like to have it where you're just sending somebody back in time, a la, Robert Heinlein, or, again, the movies that were just mentioned and everything. But yeah, I mean, regardless, you're going to deal with a paradox, and regardless, I mean, anytime you're dealing with going back in time, there's a paradox. I mean, it's just kind of baked into the proverbial cake. But when it comes to, but I mean, in this movie, I mean, they actually, since they are talking about relativity the entire time, and time and its relationship to gravity and matter. I mean, that is a really interesting rule. I mean, it might not be an explanation, but at least it's a rule that makes some sense in the physical universe, and in terms of time manipulation being related to gravity. And I mean, it just, I think that it's a cool time travel rule that the movie had that kind of set it apart for me, uh, um, in that regard. But
Yeah. I think the biggest, like, as far as like in the scope of just why this movie just landed really well for me when it came out is, yeah, it's the whole after Inception, and then he did Dark Knight Rises, right? This was such a breath of fresh air. Like, it was such a return to form for him. I would say in the same way that if I'm not mistaken, Phantom Thread came out after Inherent Vice.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like, to me, it's the equivalent with PTA. It's just like it's just really nice when like a band, after like a couple of like okay records, like all of a sudden has a masterpiece, especially like if it's mid-career, like nothing that you would expect at that point. That's the equivalent to me of like Interstellar or Phantom Thread, and I'm sure I can find other examples of bounce back movies or whatnot. But yeah, it's and the fact that he's, instead of like dealing with dreams and a father and his, like, here it's a father and daughter, same as like in Inception, his father and his kids. But again, it's the whole emotional element. But here it's about more than just that. It's about more than just the love he has to his kids, love that he has for his wife. It's about humanity. It's like the stakes are so much, I feel like, are higher, and he deals with them head on, and 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 it's I wish that he had made more movies like that. And also, the last thing I would say, I was thinking about like his next movie, is that famously, like, he called Matt Damon and he told him, Matt, do you know the saying, there's no small roles, only small actors? And it's like, yeah, well, this is a very small part. And but it was like, but we were saying like, oh, but I'll make it up to you someday. And then like in Oppenheimer, he gave him a slightly bigger role, and then finally in the Odyssey, he's gonna have the lead role. So it took a little while for Matt Damon to climb up the Nolan hierarchy, but he got there by doing some small roles. But yeah, like it's I wish that he would do more. I think Tenet, that's why I felt like Tenet was like closest thing he had that could be as good as Interstellar, which is why I appreciated it at the time, and I'm sure upon rewatch maybe I'll have a different opinion. But yeah, I wish, I hope the Odyssey movie will be interesting and fresh, because it is a retelling of a story, but I'm sure he'll have a good take on it. But I hope he's got more of these in him, because I feel like these are really the ones that he's going to be remembered for, because they're completely original. Like, to me, yeah, this is up there with like Memento, and yeah, you can give it to The Dark Knight as far as filmmaking is concerned. But I feel like as far as originality, I don't think it gets better than this and Memento. I know some people like The Prestige to a degree, but I've always had issues with that movie. As far as like originality, Inception is very big with the fans. It is actually criminal. I'm sure we've mentioned this many times, that this movie is actually surprisingly rated pretty high. Like IMDb, it's number 18, but Inception is like 14. So,
yeah.
Anyways, just some thoughts about in the scope of like his career, and yeah, I don't know if you guys have like similar.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I was saying, it's definitely one of my favorite Nolan movies for sure. Top 3, maybe 4, somewhere in that range.
And I'm sure we've done rankings, right, before.
We have
Mm.
before, yeah. I don't recall what we did in the past. That's why I didn't want to say it in our first section, just because I know we've done it at least twice now.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're
Yeah.
like contradicting ourselves.
Yeah,
But
that
yeah,
too,
I think
actually.
it would be a top three. Yeah, because it's got to be for me Memento, Dark Knight, and Interstellar. I can't imagine that there's. I'm trying to think of a. I mean, you know what? I mean, the more I think about it, I'm sure if I revisit it even more so. But I feel like Dunkirk definitely is getting up there.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I'm sure I would appreciate that one even more. Like as far as see, like where Interstellar and say Memento are just virtuoso and unsurprisingly, like both written with his brother. So he should do more of that.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, like it's virtuosity of storytelling. I feel like Dunkirk is the virtuosity of filmmaking. Like that's where he just like I'm gonna take this thing, like historical thing, but I'm just gonna tell it in my own way, and that's where he just really shows off his Spielberg chops of sorts, like his technical prowess. But here it's
Yeah.
just to me this is like Interstellar and Memento. That's like PTA Tarantino, like a writer director type of or tour type of stuff, not just like flexing your technical muscles. You know.
Yeah.
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 I I don't have a super deep like take on all this or anything like that, but I was just gonna say I really think that there's something very compelling about this movie in that it and maybe this maybe sort of ties in a little bit with what you were saying before, asking about the whole aspect of like how the wormhole portal thing got there in the first place or whatever. I just think throughout this movie there's something where they are like just tiptoeing around like supernatural stuff, like in the beginning, before everything's revealed at the end of how it was all done. You've got Murph like telling him that there's a poltergeist in the room, and he's very dismissive of it, and I think he's dismissive of it because he wants the audience to be dismissive of it. um, but then you start seeing things that she's seen, and you're like, whoa. And I remember the first time I saw this movie going like, what are we doing? Like, this movie's got a lot to do right now. Why are we wasting time on this? Kind of thing. But it all pays off so well. And then there's the whole thing of them. They start saying they a lot, like, because they're saying something put the thing there. Something is communicating to us. Something is telling you through gravity that you needed to come to these coordinates. So there's just this thing where, as scientists, they're not talking about what it is, but they're all kind of in agreement that there's something they can't explain that's beyond the natural, you know? And then there's this really phenomenal thing about like, uh, that I think plays into that, but this thing throughout all of it where it's like this exploration of love, you know. Um, Obviously, the most important one is probably the whole like father daughter thing and how that bond is. He says literally, there's two things that can span beyond space and time, and that's gravity and love. And his love for his daughter is what allowed him to achieve what they did or whatever. But then there's also like there's a very significant part of the story that involves the romantic love that Anne Hathaway feels for the person on that other planet, and how that affects their mission and how that affects everything. And then it kind of comes back to that later in the movie as well. And then there's Matt Damon's self-love, his self-preservation and love of self, and his desire to not die and everything, and all of these things, and how they affect people and how they affect us and what we do, how we do, and everything like that. It's just, I don't know. It's very good.
Yeah, no, definitely that's a good point as far as the theme that runs through it, the emotional theme that he strings in there. Also, what were thoughts, like any thoughts that you guys had as far as like ranking in the pantheon of robots?
I already know where you're going with this. Yep. I was.
Yeah, the robots, like
I've got notes. I've got notes.
Yeah, like because the what's call it, Tars case, and there's also the one on the planet. But yeah, it's an interesting approach to the robot buddy type of character like that. I'll give him props. Like it wasn't goofy. It wasn't like even though it was trying to be humorous. For me it mostly
succeeding
lands.
at being humorous.
Yeah, it's succeeding. Yeah, no, that's you got to give it to Nolan. He's able to like have a little bit of like of a giggle in there without just completely losing the thread, like the tone. But yeah, no, I personally liked it. I don't know where I would rank it, but it's definitely a good attempt at it, and it's very, very unique. The whole shape and shape shifting thing.
Oh, the physical body of the robots is as intriguing as it is awesome. Yeah. And unique, and inspired, really, and just awesome. I remember walking out of this movie theater and talking to my friends about it that day, and just being like, all of us going like, "Oh my God, Tars is one of the greatest robot characters in cinema history." Already, we just saw this movie. We're going to already put it in, I don't know where. And the crazy thing is, in the years since, because I make a lot of lists, and I've never really thought that much about it. About 5 minutes before we did this, I just did a quick Google search, and somebody, Paste Magazine, did a list of the top 100 greatest movie robots. And they said that they are disqualifying robots that have no body, like Hal and stuff like that. So just it could be a human body or a robot body or any kind of body, but just as long as it's a robotic thing of some sort that has a physical body of some sort. And they're putting the list. Now, my belief is, they don't say this, I don't think this is in order, because the order is all over the place. There's some terrible movies with terrible robots, but on this list. But they put it at 34. They put Tars and Case at 34. I don't believe it's a ranking though, like I said. But I was thinking about every robot character that I've ever seen in movies, and I decided to like really divide it up, because I think there's a big difference between like the T-1000 from Terminator and Bishop from Aliens and Ava from Ex Machina. Anytime it's actually a human being playing the robot, that's like a whole different flavor to me.
That's true. Yeah, like you want a robot to look like a robot.
Yeah, and I remember one time, it was way back when Siskel and Ebert had their TV show. Ebert was saying something, I think it was Ebert, was saying something about how they were reviewing the movie Short Circuit 2. And they both had mixed opinions about the movie, but one thing that they kind of closed on was, they said, I believe any time that you have a movie where a character on screen is being played by a tangible object that's not a human being, you have to decide how good of a job they did at making you think that this thing's alive and real. If you're watching E.T. and you don't get sad when it's dying, then they failed. And he's saying, when you're watching Star Wars and Yoda is on his deathbed, if you don't feel something at least, then they've failed. And he says, in this movie, Short Circuit 2, he's like, I don't love everything about this movie, but there is a point towards the end when they're trying to kill the robot, and he's like, I'll be damned if I didn't feel really bad about it. But I was thinking about that, so I thought, okay, so even if it's a human playing the voice or something of that nature, I would have to make a little list of like robots in movies that are not actually physically on screen played by a person with a face, sort of thing. And the only 4 I could think of, and I'm not even saying that these are better than TARS. I'm just saying the ones I could think of were, C-3PO and R2-D2 from Star Wars, K-2SO from Rogue One, Johnny Five from Short Circuit movies, and Marvin the Martian, or Marvin the Paranoid Android from Hitchhiker's Guide. Though, and considering that C-3PO and R2-D2 are kind of a twofer, that means that we've got 4 possible movies that would even maybe be better than TARS. So I would feel very comfortable saying that for me, that TARS is in the top 5, like best movie robots within those categories ever.
And to me, I think C-3PO is half disqualified because it's basically like a person, whereas I think R2-D2 is definitely might be number 1 because the fact that he does it also with no words, you know, and it's just like a trash can, like a moving trash can, essentially has all this. He's an insanely like heroic personality, and all the stuff that he does over the course of the trilogy, it's ridiculous. Whereas C-3PO, it's mostly a guy in a suit, and he's talking like a robot, but it's almost the equivalent of any sort of like human robot. But still, yes, it's still robotic. So
I just think that. I think I was, watching this movie. Obviously, I'm talking about Interstellar. I remember watching this movie, being enthralled with the movie, and we get to the turning point where they're about to go on the mission. There's just been, from when he arrives at the base, which is when TARS is introduced, to when they are about to go on the mission. There is a massive amount of information dumped on the audience. I mean, like, they've got to get you from point A to point D real quick, to get you ready for the real part of this movie that's about to start, where they're in space, where they're traveling interstellarly, and I'm just like thinking to myself, like, I remember just feeling like, okay, I'm gearing up for this. We're about to, like, this is it, I'm mentally preparing myself. This is getting really, really good. But it's also kind of a tense moment. And the fact that you've got the robot there laying down on the ship, and he's kind of like built into he's kind of got a little mount to build himself into the dashboard almost, and they're about to go, and it's this really serious moment. And they're doing that whole thing that they do on missions where they're doing they're each sounding off, they're like, are you ready? Yep, ready, check, all those kind of things. And then TARS says like 4 more humans for my my robot colony, or something, like whatever the line is. And I just remember staring at the screen and going like, did that just happen? Like, did he just say that? Because that's hilarious. And then, of course, the whole explanation of him saying, like, yeah, I mean, because they're like marine robots, and they're like, yeah, I'm programmed to have some, sarcasm, because it literally has been shown to make humans more comfortable dealing with me. And he's like, yeah, why don't you dial that back a bit?
Yeah.
Which, of course, leads to the reoccurring, trend throughout the movie of him asking him all of his settings. What's your honesty setting? And he says 90%. And he says there's one more or two. I can't even remember what the third one is.
ChatGPT type of thing.
Yeah.
I might just also obviously can't forget about Teddy from AI.
Yeah.
Teddy's a good one, even though he's like a teddy bear. He's not really.
I
he
think
doesn't
Teddy
look like a
counts.
robot.
I'd have to put Teddy. You know what's funny?
He's a robot.
He didn't make the list. Joe Gigolo made the list. And I was like, you know what? Teddy absolutely should be on this list.
Yeah, no, there's definitely, if I really like thought about other robots, I'm sure, like, because there's definitely an endearing quality to robots. Like,
well, I think there's a lot of animated ones that are great, like Wall-E, Eve, and Baymax are all awesome. But that's all in a fully animated movie. It's not as impressive as seeing like a real robot on the screen.
I mean, I will say one of the better characters, and it's funny because I'm editing the podcast now, is the from the Rebel Moon. One of the best characters is the robot. I feel like the arc that the robot has is interesting. It's like, it's somebody trying to find their way, like a former soldier. Like what kind of a person do I want to be, in the world now that I'm free, essentially, to be whatever entity I have the potential to be. It's interesting. Honestly, the whole movie should be about him, but I guess it's okay if he's just like on a journey there. But yeah, I don't know. Matt, do you have any you can think of that we haven't brought up?
Not really. I still think that the way that they handled Miller's planet was one of the weaker elements, and that, again, for 23 years to have passed on the ship, they needed to have been down there for 3 hours. And that sequence didn't feel like 3 hours, and they didn't really cut away. There was no like sense of passage of time.
Yeah, if anything, it feels like they were there for like 15 minutes tops.
Right, and I mean, I forgot if it was Tars or Case that was
Case
down
is on
there.
the mission with them down there, yeah.
Yeah, and Case, did give them like the whole, like, it would take 45 minutes for the engines to start working again, and then it doesn't feel like 45 minutes, but it's still a few minutes before they still needed a few minutes for the engines before they get hit by another tidal wave, so they spark it and all that stuff, and it still just doesn't add up that would be 3 hours.
Yeah.
But and I remember even seeing it the first time thinking like that felt really fast.
Yeah.
But
also, it's so strange that they even go to that planet because of the time dilation and all that. Wouldn't it just be not very practical?
They say in it's just in dialogue as they're approaching the 3 planets. They're talking about which one they're going to go to first, and out of the 3 of them, they got the best readings from that person. I think they said it was a woman. I can't remember, but whoever it was that was there on that planet, whichever astronaut landed there, they got really spectacular readings from there. It seemed like it was going to be the best of the 3 planets. And also, because of the time dilation, they thought that everything was still hunky-dory. They didn't know that she was dead. They assumed that it was all well and good,
Oh, that because of the time barely passes there.
Yeah, they once they find the wreckage, they realize they're like those waves are so violent. They're like, for any of that wreckage to even still be there, it means that only 1 or 2 of those waves have probably gone by. They're like, we probably missed her by like, what do they say, like an hour or 2 maybe.
Yeah.
Like from her perspective, she landed, got crushed and killed, and then a couple more waves hit and broke the ship apart into pieces. And I should say, sorry, she landed, took a bunch of readings, was like, this is awesome. Like, it's kind of weird that it's a bunch of water, but it's like we have breathable air, we have gravity, we have pressure, and we have water. We really have almost everything we need to live here. She didn't know that there was a giant tidal wave that was going to kill her, And then she gets killed by the tidal wave. A couple more tidal waves come, crush her ship into bitty pieces. They land just a little bit later, and they're thinking they're going to find everything good,
Yeah.
But as Admiral Akbar would say, it was a trap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not intentional, but it was. It's a trap.
The other day, I saw like a potato somebody posted online.
I saw
Look,
that.
you saw that one? It's not a
Yeah.
potato. It's a trap. It's funny. Like I watch tennis with my kids, and when a player wins a set 6-0, they call it like he bageled him.
Yeah.
So I keep saying like, oh, he bageled him. Oh, he's gonna bagel him. And then one time my kids wanted to like get into it, and it was like, and they try to like say it before I did. Is like, so they said like he's gonna potato him. And I was like, you know what? Potato actually makes more sense than bagel. It's more oval. So, anyways, smart kids.
It's
Any
not
other
Taurus
thoughts?
shaped though.
Yeah. Anything we haven't covered about Interstellar?
Not that I can think of.
This is absolutely not important, but I'll just say it anyway. When I saw Interstellar, I was very frustrated, despite loving the movie so much, because at the end of the movie, you get one of the most important scenes is Matthew McConaughey talking with his daughter, and now she's older than he is, kind of thing, by a lot, and it just frustrated me a bit because in my head at that point I had been making notes to write a script where there was going to be a scene like that at the end for the very same reason, for time dilation through space travel. And I felt like I just should scrap that whole thing and not even write it now, because Christopher Nolan's so amazing and he made this movie that's going to be talked about forever. And it's funny that, kind of going back to what you were saying about how even though this movie is considered really, really high on IMDb's top list of, greatest movies ever, it's definitely not talked about nearly enough. Like it is, in my opinion, still a slightly underrated movie. And still now, especially over time, now that so much time has passed since the movie was made, it's just funny to me to think that I had that reaction, because it's like, obviously another movie could still be made. It doesn't matter that something like that has been done already.
Yeah. I feel like in some ways it's got a very similar track to like Inception in the mind of movie fans, that maybe it's not as popular as Inception as a popcorn movie, but a lot of people are big fans of the it comes up again and again, like the music, like the Hans Zimmer score in Interstellar and Inception, like is some of his two better scores. So I feel like it's definitely got a life like out there. Like you definitely see it pop up in the culture as much, if not more, than Inception does to some degree at this point. So yeah, I think, and I do think that with like more hard sci-fi or movie buffs, that ultimately it's gonna win out. It's gonna be the one I think that would more stand out in 10-20 years from now, I think. But at the same time, it's still ultimately very much a popcorn movie. I think the closest that Nolan got to like an artsy movie, aside from, I still feel like Memento was really like his true masterpiece, and I don't know if he'll ever top that as far as originality. But Dunkirk definitely is big, like just what he did there as far as film history. Like if people go and study how to make a movie properly, that one's definitely big. But yeah, I don't know. It's he's got an interesting career. It's good for him. He does whatever he wants. So it's all good. But he's definitely a unique character in the pantheon of filmmakers.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he doesn't do the art movie thing. He doesn't do the pure popcorn movie. He takes it to like this other level. So, and it's not easy to do. We've mentioned it many times how it's tough to pull off. That's why every movie that's like so we say like, well, if only it was directed by Nolan or Denis.
Yeah.
It's like, because there's just very few of these people that just really can take something and elevate it. Yeah. Yeah, like that scene with the attaching to the aligning with the thing, the
docking scene.
Scene. Yeah, that one's like pretty big too. A lot of people like point to that one as being like one of the better scenes he's ever shot or like set up.
It's so tense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really well done. Yeah, like reminiscent of like Apollo 13 and some of those movies of like that moment where you really need to like nail this to like survive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, it's also it's that music that I mean, the whole movie has great music, but that scene where the ship is spinning and then they're trying to match the spin and it's just getting a little bit closer and a little bit closer, and he's yelling all the commands to TARS and he's like, activate the docking clamp and whatever, and it's like all this stuff. It's just like edge of your seat kind of stuff.
Yeah, and if nothing else, this is one thing this movie definitely has is that in the meme world, the McConaughey crying thing is definitely very much into consciousness.
Yeah.